This video is one in a series of videos that cover database topics in 3 themes. We look at Oracle APEX, Application Express for web applications, relational database concepts for designing and building databases, and SQL, the programming language for working with a relational database. If you want to work with the video series, you can go to this URL to get the scripts and handouts. In this video, we are going to take another look at the database that our application uses and review our progress in terms of what we've developed in the application. Do we have working forms for each table in the database? And then we'll create a view based on 4 tables using employees, persons, transactions, and animals. Then we'll create an interactive grid report, no editing capability, in other words, and we'll use that view. We will save that report, or we'll customize the report and create a public report, and then we'll test that by logging in as a regular user, not a developer. Then we'll create another view that uses employees twice and persons twice. Why would we do that? If we want to list supervisors and their contact information along with the employees and their contact information, we have to use each table twice, once as an employee or subordinate and another time as the supervisor. So we'll take a look at how to do that. I'm logged into APEX as a developer. In this video, we are going to take another look at the database that our application uses and review our progress in terms of what we've developed in the application. Do we have working forms for each table in the database? And then we'll create a view based on 4 tables using employees, persons, transactions, and animals. Then we'll create an interactive grid report, no editing capability, in other words, and we'll use that view. We will save that report, or we'll customize the report and create a public report, and then we'll test that by logging in as a regular user, not a developer. Then we'll create another view that uses employees twice and persons twice. Why would we do that? If we want to list supervisors and their contact information along with the employees and their contact information, we have to use each table twice, once as an employee or subordinate and another time as the supervisor. So we'll take a look at how to do that. I'm logged into APEX as a developer. In APEX, I'm going to open the development application, and I'm going to run that application. And we're nearing the end of this video series where we've been building forms and reports for an animal shelter application. I have several forms and reports for animals and people, and data maintenance, which would be the tables that provide valid input, a list of values for the other forms that we have for animals and people. So if I call up the data model, then we periodically should look at this and see what functionality remains to be developed in the application, or have we taken care of these tables. We can add and maintain data about animals now, as well as the animals' transactions, intake, placement, transfer, etc. We can add data about an activity for a specific animal. We can add a person. A person can be somebody who simply comes in with an animal or takes an animal home, but that person can also be somebody who is an employee. We have a form for persons, and we have a master detail for employees who are also persons. We have forms, working forms for the lists of value tables, the ones that give us reference values we can enter into these main forms that are central to the purpose of this application. So we actually have more things than we probably want to leave in the application. That's because this is the development environment. We want some comparison, but ultimately in the next video we can decide which ones we want to keep when we copy this application and move it over to the production application. But what you do once you have working forms where you can enter and maintain data is consider what kind of reports you want to get out of the database. The fact is that getting the data into the database, although very important, is not the primary use of the application. More often, we're wanting to pull data out for analysis to retrieve information. So I want to create another report. I will go to Application Builder and I'm going to click on SQL Workshop because what I want to do is create a view that combines data from 4 tables and then put a report on that view. So I'm going to right click on Object Browser and go to a new tab. Then I will come over here to the plus sign on the right and do a view, and this will be View Employees Transactions, and I will go to Query Builder. I'm going to select Employees, then Persons, then Transactions, and then Animals. And spread these out a little bit so we can see the relationships because we need to connect every table to at least one other table. So the connection from employees to persons is pers ID to pers ID. That's the foreign key to the primary key. Then I'll go from pers ID to pers ID and transactions. We could also, with another copy of persons, connect to client ID, but we can't do it simultaneously from the same 2 tables. I'll address that issue shortly in another view. Then we want to connect animal ID, the foreign key, with its primary key over in animals. The thing to consider is, will I ever have an employee record without a person's record? No, so I can use a regular join. Will I ever have a person's record without a transaction record? Yes. So I need to do a right or left outer join. Don't get hung up on the left or the right. Just look to see that you have the plus sign on the side where you think you might not have records. So persons, yes, but I might not have an associated transaction. So I want that person to still show up in the results. Then I want animal to animals. Let's try running this query. Whoops, I can't run the query unless I select fields. So I want pers ID, status, and role. Then I want first name, last name. I could get pers ID from either table, by the way. And I want phone number. Then from transaction, I want trans date and trans type. And then animal ID, category from animals, and dominant breed. I'm going to change the aliases so I have mixed case like pers ID and status, but I'll pause the video while I do the rest of these. So I've changed the aliases using upper and lower case and spelling out first name and last name. I want to also make sure that I only see active employees. So let me try this. I'll type in active. That is how the data is stored, capital A, lowercase c, t, I, v, e. Let's try running this. So I have an error. Notice these tabs. If I go to the SQL tab and scroll down looking through here, then the syntax here for status should be equal active and active in single quotes. So I don't use Query Builder a whole lot. I think I need to do my equal sign and put active, capital A, in single quotes. Let's try that. So now I'm getting results. And I can hit return to continue with Query Builder and click next and create the view. I'm going to come back to the Application Builder tab, create a page. This will be a report. I'll make it an interactive grid, and I'll use 161. And this will be employees and their transactions. I'll click Next, create a navigation item under the People section. When I select the table, I'll actually select the view that we just created, which is a special kind of table, and I will click Create. And we can see over on the left-hand side the fields that we have in our report. I can click Save and look at the report. Now there are several things I'd like to do here. One is I've decided that I want to include transaction ID. So I'm going to go back to Page Designer. I can do it from here or up here. But I also need to go back to Object Browser if I want to add that field. I will go to the code and I will add the field. So I'm going to pause the video and hit return a few times so I can see the column aliases as they're going off here to the right. I'm going to hit return so we see them all on the screen. So I've decided that I want to add transaction ID. So it doesn't really matter what order because I'm going to change the order in the report, but I'll put it over here by trans date and trans type. So I'll do in double quotes trans ID and make sure that you have a double quote in front of animal ID. Again, it doesn't have to be in the same order if we're using the as column alias syntax, but I'm going to put it in the same sequence, and I don't have to have the transaction table name listed, but I will be consistent with what we have in the rest of the coding. And make sure you add a comma. Let's try that, and it says it compiled successfully. Now if I come back to Page Designer, we see when we expand columns, we see the columns from the original view. If I right click on columns and do Synchronize Columns, I was expecting Trans ID to come in and it doesn't show up. I'm guessing that that's because it's an interactive grid instead of an interactive report. So I think because I have no intention of making this page interact directly in terms of input and maintenance of data, it's a report. I'm going to switch from interactive grid to interactive report. When I do that, I have to reselect my view, and I'll do a save on that and look at my columns, and Trans ID came in because when we switched it to interactive report and selected the view again, then Apex looked at the current SQL coding for that view. Then we see our report and we also see the Trans ID. I want to make some modifications to this, but one other thing I should probably do here is come into the, let's see, I'm not sure where it is. Maybe it's under Attributes, probably. I want to say Save Public Report, yes, and click Save. Then run this, and I want to consider the possibility that I might want to not display everything. For example, maybe I don't want to display animal ID even though it's used in the query to connect transaction to category and dominant breed. So I could not display something. In columns, I could also, while I'm here, I could move first name. Actually, I went all the way to the top. I want it to go down one. Purse ID, first name, go up. So first name, last name, status, role, phone, then trans ID. I'll just leave the rest of it. We can reorder the columns, in other words. So I'll apply that. Then I need to make some edits because I want to see dominant breed. I want to see the text. So come back here. We know how to do this. We'll go to dominant breed, make that a select or a value based on a list of values, and we'll pick from dominant breed, save that, and view the report. I'm going to set up a control break, and it'll be based on purse ID, but I also want to see the last name listed with the purse ID. We'll have a header row for the control break, so I'll click apply, and so we see the purse ID and we see the last name. I'll come over to actions and I'll do data aggregate. We don't want to count the aggregate column. We want to count something that will give us a different value for each row. So I'm going to use trans ID and apply. So now I'm seeing 8 transactions for this employee. You know what? What I want to show you here, I'm going to go back to columns. I need to see animal ID. I wanted to give you a good example of count distinct. So let's change this aggregate. So I'm displaying animal ID, and it'll be count distinct, and it will be animal ID. And let's see, I looked at the data in advance. I think if it's red burn, what I want to show here is we see a count distinct of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But if I go to red burn, then I see a distinct count of 10 because I have two rows for the same animal ID. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Just want to illustrate the difference between count and count distinct. So I'll take off the filter on Redmond, and let's say that we want to keep this. I'll do report, save report, and I will call this imp and trans count. I'll make that public and apply that. Then I'll go back, I'll start over with the primary report. Get rid of this. I need to do a save. I don't remember saving that. This is the default report settings where we don't have any filtering. If I switch over to employee and trans count, I get that. If I come back to primary report, I get that. So now I'm going to hide some things. So I've moved several columns over to not show up in this version of the report, and I'll apply that. Then I want to do a control break, and it will be on category and then on dominant breed. And I guess because I had the aggregate on animal ID, it's still there, and that's fine. Let me do a report. Oh, that's what it is. I don't get a save as, so when I do save report, I'm getting that as the default. I will make this a named report, and this will be breed and employee summary. And I'll make that public and apply. So now I have 2 public reports and the default. I'll go back to the default and come down to report and do a reset so I get back to the original format. And I will save that report as the default settings. Let's test this. I'm going to open up another browser and come to this URL as my testing regular user. And go to people in their transactions, and I see that I too, as a regular user, can access those stored reports. And I can also go back to the primary report and do my own customization if I want to. So this has taken longer than I expected. I will do the report of supervisors and employees in the next video. And in the next video, we will also copy the development application over for the production application. See you in the next video.